The blue crystals that made up Crystalline's body shook with fear. She watched through the viewing portal as another Krex warship fired its weapons at her home city. The beam of red energy hit the crystal towers where thousands of her people lived. The beautiful structures turned to dust in seconds. "Send the message again," she told the communications officer beside her. Her voice came out as musical tones that other Villani could understand. "The Galactic Mediation Council must hear us." The young Villani named Harmonic Wave pressed his thin fingers against the control panel. His crystal body was darker than Crystalline's, showing his younger age. "Elder, I have been trying for 3 days. The Council does not answer our calls." "Then try the emergency channel," Crystalline said. She looked out the window again. More ships were coming. The Krex Empire had sent an entire fleet to destroy her people. "Use any frequency you can find." Harmonic Wave worked quickly with the strange alien technology they had received years ago from traders. The Villani were not warriors. They lived in peace on their water world, growing crystal cities beneath the waves. They made beautiful art and music. They had never hurt anyone. "I found something," Harmonic Wave said. "There is a signal coming from a system far away. Maybe they can help us." "Send our message there," Crystalline ordered. "Tell them the Krex are killing us all. Tell them we need help." Far across the galaxy, Captain Jiho sat in his command chair on the bridge of the UES Indomitable. The Earth ship was on patrol near the edge of human space. It was a routine mission, checking for pirates or smugglers. Jiho was reading reports when Communications Officer Nari called out. "Captain, I'm getting a strange signal," Nari said. She was a young officer with short black hair. Her fingers moved over the control panel quickly. "It's not from any Earth, ship, or station." Jiho stood up from his chair. He was a tall man in his 30s, wearing the dark blue uniform of Earth's Space Navy. "What kind of signal?" "It's on an emergency frequency," Nari replied. "The language is completely unknown. The computer is trying to translate it now." "Put it on screen," Jiho ordered. The main screen showed static for a moment. Then a face appeared. It was not human. The being had crystal-like skin that was pale blue. Its eyes were large and had no pupils. When it spoke, the sounds were like music. "The translation is coming through now, Captain," Nari said. Words appeared on the screen below the alien's face. "Please help us. The Krex Empire is destroying our world. They are killing all my people. We have done nothing wrong. We are peaceful. Please, anyone who hears this, we need help." The message repeated several times. The alien's face showed clear fear and sadness. In the background, Jiho could see explosions and fires. Engineer Taman came up behind the captain's chair. He was a young man who handled the ship's technical systems. "Sir, I've traced the signal. It came from a star system about 200 light-years from here. It's not on any of our maps." "First contact situation," Jiho said quietly. He had trained for this, but it was different when it actually happened. "Nari, send a message to Earth Command, Priority 1. Tell them we have received what appears to be a distress call from an unknown alien species." "Yes, sir," Nari said. She began typing quickly. Jiho looked at the screen again. The alien was still talking, begging for help. The captain had seen war before. He had fought against pirates and rebels, but this looked different. This looked like innocent people being murdered. "Taman, how long would it take us to reach their system?" Jiho asked. "At maximum speed, about 3 days," the engineer replied. "Sir," Nari said, I have Admiral Seokjin on the line. He wants to speak with you immediately. Jiho nodded. Put him through. The screen changed to show Admiral Seokjin in his office. On the orbital station New Seoul, the Admiral was an older man with gray hair. He looked serious. Captain Jiho, I've read your report. You're certain this signal is authentic? The Admiral asked. Yes, sir. The computer analysis shows it's real. The alien appears to be asking for help against something called the Krex Empire, Jiho replied. This could be humanity's first contact with hostile aliens, Admiral Seokjin said. I'm calling an emergency meeting of the Earth Defense Council. Until then, you are to monitor the situation but take no action. Understood, sir. The connection ended. Jiho turned back to the alien message. The being was still speaking, still asking for help. The captain could see more explosions in the background now. Whatever was happening to these people, it was getting worse. Nari, keep listening to their transmissions. I want to know everything about this situation, Jiho ordered. Yes, sir. Captain, there's something else. I'm picking up other signals from the same area. They're using different technology. The computer thinks they might be from the attackers. Can you translate those too? Working on it now, Nari said. After a few minutes, she looked up with a worried expression. Sir, the other signals are talking about destroying all life on the alien planet. They call it cleansing. The world for colonization. Jiho felt anger rising in his chest. He had grown up hearing stories about Earth's wars, about innocent people being killed by cruel armies. This sounded the same, but happening to aliens far from Earth. How many ships do they have? He asked. Taemin checked his sensors. I count at least 20 large vessels. They appear to be military ships based on their energy signatures. The captain walked to the front of the bridge and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, people were dying. They had asked Earth for help, even though they probably had never heard of humanity before. Sir, Nari said, the alien transmission is getting weaker. I think their communication system is being damaged. On screen, the blue crystal alien looked directly at the camera. Even though Jiho could not understand the alien's real words, the translation made the meaning clear. If anyone receives this message, please remember us. We were the Villani. We lived in peace. We harmed no one. The Krex came and said we had to die so they could take our world. Please, do not let our deaths be meaningless. Stop them from doing this to others. The transmission ended in static. The bridge was quiet for a long moment. Every human crew member had heard the alien's final words. They all understood what it meant. Orders, Captain? Nari asked quietly. Jiho looked at his crew. They were good people, trained to protect Earth and humanity. But they were also people who believed in protecting the innocent, no matter where they came from. We wait for orders from Earth Command, he said finally. But start preparing the ship for combat operations. Something tells me we're going to war. Admiral Seokjin stood at the head of the long table in the command center of New Seoul Station. Around him sat the most important military and civilian leaders of Earth. The room had large windows showing the blue planet below and the busy traffic of ships coming and going. Ladies and gentlemen, we face an unprecedented situation, the Admiral began. We have received what appears to be a genuine distress call from an alien species. Intelligence Officer Yuna will brief you on what we know. Yuna stood up from her seat. She was a small woman with sharp eyes who had spent years studying possible alien contact scenarios. The transmission came from a system we have designated as Target Alpha. The aliens call themselves the Villani. They appear to be a peaceful, Aquatic species living on a water world. She pressed a button, and the room's main screen showed the translated alien message. The crystal blue face of the alien appeared, speaking its musical language while text scrolled below. The attackers call themselves the Krex Empire. Based on intercepted communications, they have been systematically destroying Vellani cities for the past week. Their stated goal is complete genocide, followed by colonization of the planet. General Minho, a stern man in his 50s, leaned forward. What are their military capabilities? That's where it gets interesting, Yuna replied. Our analysis suggests the Krex use fairly primitive weapons by our standards. Energy beams, projectile weapons, and basic missile systems. Their ships appear to be large but not heavily armored. Dr. Dongyun, Earth's leading xenobiologist, raised his hand. Have we learned anything about the Vellani themselves, their biology, their culture? Some, Yuna said. They appear to be silicon-based life forms, possibly evolved from crystal structures. They communicate through musical tones. Most importantly, they seem to have no military technology at all. They are completely defenseless. President Kim, Earth's civilian leader, spoke from her position at the table. What are our options here? This is clearly a first contact situation, but it's also a humanitarian crisis. We have several choices, Admiral Seokjin said. We could ignore the situation entirely. We could try to contact this Galactic Mediation Council the aliens mentioned. Or we could intervene directly. Intervene how? Asked General Minho. We send a fleet to stop the genocide, the Admiral replied simply. The room erupted in discussion. Some officials worried about starting an interstellar war. Others argued that Earth had a moral duty to help innocent people, even alien ones. Dr. So-Young, the fleet's xenopsychologist, stood up. If I may, we need to consider what this means for humanity's future. Our first contact with alien life is with refugees being murdered by an empire. How we respond will define how the galaxy sees us. Assuming there is a galaxy-wide civilization, added Yuna. The aliens mentioned a Galactic Mediation Council, which suggests some kind of interstellar government or organization. President Kim looked around the table. Admiral Seokjin, what would a military intervention look like? We would send a small fleet initially, 3 or 4 ships to assess the situation and attempt to stop the immediate threat. If we encounter resistance, we escalate as needed. General Minho nodded. I recommend Captain Jiho lead the mission. He's already familiar with the situation, and the Indomitable is one of our best ships. What about first contact protocols? Asked Dr. Dongyun. We've never actually met peaceful aliens before. The protocols assume we make contact during exploration, not during a war zone, Admiral Seokjin replied. We'll have to adapt as we go. Meanwhile, in the Aquos system, Commander Thrakmur stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Bone Crusher. The Krex commander was a huge creature, standing almost 9 feet tall. His skin was thick and gray like armor. His face had a large mouth full of sharp teeth. Report, he growled at his subordinates. The water planet's northern continent has been cleared, Commander, said one of his officers. No Vellani remain, alive there. Good. How much longer until we can begin colonization? Another 2 days to finish clearing the remaining cities. Then our settlers can begin landing. Thrakmur smiled, showing his teeth. The Krex had conquered 12 worlds in the past century. The Vellani were just the latest species to fall before their superior military might. Soon their crystal cities would be replaced with proper Krex settlements. Commander, called the communications officer, we're receiving a transmission from an unknown source. What kind of transmission? Thrakmor asked. It appears to be from another species, possibly responding to the Vellani distress calls. The signal is coming from outside the system. The Krex commander laughed. Probably another weak species wanting to negotiate. How many ships? We detect 3 vessels approaching at high speed. They'll arrive in approximately 60 hours. 3 ships? Thrakmor seemed amused. Alert the fleet. When these newcomers arrive, we'll destroy them quickly and get back to work. Back on New Sol Station, the Earth Defense Council had reached a decision. President Kim stood to address the room. We will not stand by while innocent people are murdered, she said firmly. Admiral Seokjin, you are authorized to dispatch a fleet to the Aquos system with orders to stop the genocide by any means necessary. What are our rules of engagement? Asked General Minho. Protect the innocent. Stop the killing. If the Krex want to fight, we'll give them one, Admiral Seokjin replied. Dr. So-young looked concerned. We should try to communicate with them first. Maybe they can be reasoned with. Maybe, the Admiral said, but we go in prepared for war. 2 hours later, Captain Jiho received his new orders. He stood on the bridge of the Indomitable reading the message on his personal tablet. His crew watched him carefully. Nari, send a message to the destroyers Soul's Pride and Busan's Hammer. They're to join us immediately, he ordered. Are we really going to fight aliens, sir? Asked Taemin. If we have to, Jiho replied. These Krex are murdering innocent people. That makes them our enemy. Communications Officer Nari looked up from her station. Captain, I'm still receiving Vellani transmissions. They're getting weaker, but they're still alive. Then we're not too late, Jiho said. Plot a course for the Aquos system, maximum speed. Sir, Taemin said, shouldn't we wait for reinforcements? 3 ships against 20 seems like bad odds. Captain Jiho smiled grimly. Taemin, those Krex have never fought humans before. They have no idea what they're about to face. The 3 Earth ships accelerated toward the distant system. None of the humans knew they were about to make history. They were about to show the galaxy what happened when someone threatened innocence in front of deathworlders. In the Aquos system, Commander Thrakmor continued his genocide, completely unaware that he had just made the worst mistake in Krex history. He had attracted the attention of a species that had survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, and global wars, a species that had learned to fight on a planet that tried to kill them every day. The Krex were about to learn why humans were the apex predators of their world. The 3 human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Aquos system. Captain Jiho stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, looking at the tactical display. Red dots marked the positions of Krex ships scattered throughout the system. 23 enemy vessels, reported tactical analyst Wu Sung. He was a quiet man who had studied alien warfare theories for years, though this was his first time seeing real alien combat. They're spread out around the planet in bombardment positions. What about the planet itself? Jiho asked. Scout pilot Hana spoke up from her position at the flight control station. Sir, I'm ready to take my fighter in for a closer look. The enemy ships seem focused on the planet's surface. I can probably get close without being detected. Do it, but stay invisible, Jiho ordered. We need to know exactly what we're dealing with. Hana nodded and headed for the flight deck. She was one of Earth's best pilots, trained to fly in combat zones and gather intelligence. Her fighter was equipped with the latest stealth technology. 20 minutes later, Hana's voice came over the communication system. Captain, you need to see this. The main screen flickered and showed the view from Hana's fighter camera. Below was a beautiful blue planet covered mostly with water. But the beauty was ruined by what the humans could see happening on the surface. Large Krex ships hung in the atmosphere, firing red energy beams down at crystal cities. The cities were built underwater and rose above the surface like gleaming towers. When the alien weapons hit them, the crystal structures shattered and fell into the sea. "My God," whispered Dr. So-young, who had joined the bridge crew to observe first contact. "They're destroying everything." Hana's fighter moved closer to one of the Krex ships. The alien vessel was huge, almost a mile long, but it looked clumsy and poorly designed. It had thick armor plates bolted together and weapons that stuck out at odd angles. "Their targeting systems are terrible," Hana reported. "They're just firing randomly at the cities, no precision at all." "What about their fighters?" asked Jiho. "I don't see any, sir. They're using their big ships for everything." Wusong studied the tactical data from Hana's reconnaissance. "Captain, this is strange. The Krex ships are powerful, but they're fighting like amateurs. They have no formation discipline, no coordinated tactics." "Maybe they've never faced real opposition," suggested Engineer Taman. On the planet below, Elder Krista Lynn huddled in an underground shelter with the few hundred Villani who remained alive. The beautiful crystal cities that had taken centuries to grow were being destroyed in hours. "Are the others still alive?" she asked Harmonic Wave. The younger Villani checked their emergency communication device. "Some groups on the southern continent are still transmitting, but Elder, the Krex ships are moving toward them now." "Did anyone answer our distress call?" "I don't know," Harmonic Wave said sadly. "If help was coming, wouldn't it be here by now?" Above the planet, Hana continued her reconnaissance mission. She moved her fighter close to one of the smaller Krex ships to get detailed scans of their technology. "Captain, I'm seeing some interesting things," she reported. "Their energy weapons are based on heated plasma. Very powerful, but very inefficient. Their armor is thick, but appears to be just metal plates. And, sir, I'm detecting biological signatures from inside their ships." "What kind of biological signatures?" asked Dr. So-young. "Large life forms, much bigger than humans. I'm reading high body temperatures and dense bone structures." Wusong looked at his analysis. "They sound like they evolved on a heavy world with high gravity. That would explain why they built such massive ships." Captain Jiho studied the tactical situation. The human fleet was outnumbered 8-1, but something felt wrong about the enemy formation. "Hana, see if you can intercept any of their communications," he ordered. After several minutes, Hana's voice came back. "Got it, sir. The computer is translating now." A rough, growling voice came through the speakers. The translation appeared on screen. "Sector 7 cleared. Moving to next target zone. These crystal creatures break easily." Another voice responded. "Commander Thrackmore orders all ships to maintain bombardment pattern. We finish this job today." The humans on the bridge exchanged looks. The aliens were talking about genocide like it was routine work. "There's more," Hana continued. "I'm picking up a command discussion between their leaders." The main screen showed the translated conversation. "How long until the planet is ready? For colonization?" 6 more hours to clear all Villani settlements. Then we can begin landing our people." "Good. Make sure no Villani survive." "The High Command wants a clean world." Dr. So-young looked sick. "They're planning to kill every single one of them." "Not if we stop them first," Jiho said grimly. Wusong pulled up his tactical analysis. "Sir, I've been studying their ship movements and formations. These Kreks may be physically powerful, but they're terrible at military strategy. They have no scouts, no reserves, no defensive positioning. What do you mean? Asked Jiho. They're fighting like bullies who have never faced real resistance. All their ships are focused on attacking the planet. None are watching for threats from outside the system. Taman nodded. Their technology is also much more primitive than I expected. Those plasma weapons would barely scratch our armor, and their ships are too slow to escape if they need to retreat. Captain Jiho made his decision. Hana, return to the ship. We've seen enough. When the scout pilot was back aboard, Jiho called his senior officers together in the briefing room. What we're looking at isn't a war, he began. It's a massacre. The Kreks are exterminating a peaceful species for no reason except they want the planet. What are your orders, Captain? Asked his first officer. We're going to stop them, Jiho said simply. But first we need to try to communicate with any surviving Villani. Dr. Soyoung worked with Communications Officer Nari to send a message, on the same frequency the Villani had used for their distress call. This is Captain Jiho of Earthship Indomitable. We received your distress signal. We are here to help. Please respond if you can hear this. They waited. After 10 minutes, a weak signal came back. It was Elder Krista Lynn's musical voice, translated into human language. You came? We thought no one heard us. We heard you, Jiho replied. How many of your people are still alive? Maybe 1,000. We are hiding underground, but the Kreks will find us soon. Not if we find them first, Jiho said. Stay hidden. Help is coming. He ended the transmission and looked at his officers. Gentlemen, we're about to engage in humanity's first interstellar combat. The enemy outnumbers us, but they've made one critical mistake. What's that, sir? Asked Wusung. They attacked innocent people in front of humans. Jiho smiled coldly. And we don't forgive that. The 3 human ships began moving toward the Kreks fleet. None of the alien ships noticed them approaching. The Kreks were too busy with their genocide to pay attention to threats. They were about to learn that the galaxy had a new apex predator, and it had just decided they were the enemy. Admiral Seokjin arrived in the Aquos system 6 hours after Captain Jiho's initial reconnaissance. The human reinforcement fleet was impressive. The massive dreadnought Soul's Wrath, 2 aircraft carriers, 6 destroyers, and 4 support ships. Status. Report, the Admiral ordered as he stepped onto the bridge of his flagship. Sir, Captain Jiho has been observing the enemy fleet, reported his communications officer. The situation is worse than we thought. The Kreks are systematically destroying every Villani settlement on the planet. Admiral Seokjin studied the tactical display. The Kreks ships were spread across the planet in bombardment positions, completely unaware that a human battle fleet now surrounded their system. Get me Captain Jiho, he ordered. Jiho's face appeared on the main screen. Behind him, the bridge crew of the Indomitable was busy preparing for combat. Admiral, the Kreks have killed approximately 90% of the Villani population, Jiho reported. We estimate less than 1,000 aliens remain alive, hiding in underground shelters. What about Kreks' military capabilities? Primitive by our standards, sir. Their weapons are basic plasma cannons, their ships are slow and poorly armored, and their tactics are non-existent. They're fighting like they've never faced organized resistance. Admiral Seokjin nodded. That's about to change. I'm authorizing full military intervention, rules of engagement. Protect the Villani, stop the genocide, and destroy any Kreks forces that resist. Understood, sir. The Admiral turned to his tactical officer. Send a message to all ships. We're going to show these aliens what happens when they murder innocent people. On the planet's surface, Commander Hyunwoo was preparing his Marines for humanity's first alien combat deployment. The commander was a veteran of Earth's conflicts, trained in urban warfare and hostile environment operations. "Listen up," he addressed his assembled troops in the transport bay of the carrier New Incheon. "We're about to fight aliens for the first time in human history. Intelligence says they're big, strong, and brutal. But remember your training. Size doesn't matter if you can't hit your target." The Marines checked their equipment. Each soldier wore powered armor designed for Earth's most dangerous environments. Their weapons were kinetic rifles that could punch through tank armor, backed up by plasma grenades and rocket launchers. "Sir," asked Sergeant Mina, "what do we know about their ground forces?" "They're approximately 3 meters tall, heavily built, and evolved on a high-gravity world," Hyunwoo replied. "They rely on intimidation and brute force, but their reaction times are slower than humans, and their tactics are basic." Private Kwan raised his hand. "What about the aliens we're protecting?" "The Vellani are peaceful, crystal-based life forms. They have no military technology and are completely defenseless. Our job is to keep them alive." Meanwhile, on the Krex, flagship Bone Crusher, Commander Thrak Mur was growing annoyed. His communications officer had been trying to contact him for several minutes. "What is it?" the massive alien growled. "Commander, our sensors are detecting new ships in the system. They're not Vellani vessels." Thrakmor looked at the tactical display. Several red dots now surrounded his fleet. "How many ships?" 15 vessels of unknown design. They've positioned themselves between our fleet and the system exit. The Krex." Commander studied the display more carefully. The new ships were smaller than his own vessels, but seemed to be more advanced in design. Probably another weak species wanting to negotiate, he decided. "Send them a warning message. Tell them to leave immediately or be destroyed." "Yes, Commander." The message was transmitted to the human fleet. Admiral Seokjin listened to the translation with amusement. "Unknown vessels, this is Commander Thrak Mur of the Krex Empire. You are interfering with an official colonization operation. Depart this system immediately or face destruction." The Admiral smiled grimly. "Communications, send a reply. Commander Thrak Mur, this is Admiral Seokjin of the Earth Defense Force. You are committing genocide against a peaceful species. Cease all hostile actions immediately and surrender your fleet." On the Krex flagship, Thrakmor read the translation with disbelief. "They're demanding our surrender? How many ships do they have again?" 15, Commander. "And we have 23. Thrakmor's mouth opened in what passed for a Krex laugh. "These humans must be even weaker than the Vellani. Prepare all ships for combat. We'll destroy them quickly." The Krex fleet began moving toward the human ships. Their formation was loose and uncoordinated, with the larger vessels leading and smaller ships following behind. Admiral Seokjin watched the enemy approach on his tactical display. "They're actually going to fight us," he said with some surprise. "Their formations are terrible," observed his tactical officer. "No scouts, no reserves, no defensive positioning." "They've probably never fought anyone who could fight back," the Admiral replied. "Let's show them what real military tactics look like. All ships, execute Battle Plan Alpha." The human fleet split into 3 groups. The carriers launched their fighters while the destroyers moved to flanking positions. The dreadnought Souls Wrath advanced slowly toward the center of the Krex formation. Fighter pilot Kyung led the first squadron of human aerospace fighters into combat against alien forces. Her F-47 Falcon was a sleek interceptor designed for space combat, equipped with missiles and rapid-fire cannons. "Phoenix Squadron, this is Phoenix Leader," she called over the radio. We have visual contact with enemy vessels. They're big and ugly, but I don't see any fighters launching to intercept us." "Confirmed, Phoenix Leader," replied her wingman. "Sensors show no enemy aerospace forces. Looks like they're using their capital ships for everything." Kyung shook her head in amazement. "These aliens don't know the first thing about space combat. All fighters attack formation. Let's show them why you need air cover." The human fighters accelerated toward the Krex fleet. The alien ships tried to target them with their main weapons, but the massive plasma cannons were too slow to track small, fast-moving targets. "Phoenix Leader to Soul's Wrath," Kyung reported. "Enemy point defense is minimal. Their big guns can't hit us, and they don't have any small weapons." Admiral Seokjin smiled. "Excellent. All fighters, begin attack runs on enemy propulsion systems. Disable their ability to maneuver." Back on the surface of Aquos, Elder Crystalline listened to the sounds of battle in space. The bombardment of her world had stopped as the Krex ships focused on the new threat. "Can you hear what's happening?" she asked Harmonic Wave. The younger Villani worked with their communication equipment. "I'm picking up transmissions from the battle. The humans are fighting the Krex." "Humans? Is that what they call themselves?" "Yes, Elder, and I think they're winning." Above the planet, the first exchange of fire between humans and aliens was about to begin. The Krex opened fire with their plasma cannons, sending bolts of superheated energy toward the human ships. The plasma blasts hit the hull of the destroyer Soul's Pride. The crew felt the ship shake, but the armor held easily. "Damage report," called the ship's captain. "Minor hull scoring," reported the damage control officer. "Their weapons barely scratched our armor." The captain smiled. "Return fire. Show them what a real weapon looks like." The destroyer's main railgun fired once. The hypersonic projectile crossed space in seconds and struck the Krex cruiser Flesh Render amidships. The kinetic energy punched completely through the alien ship, causing massive internal explosions. The Krex vessel broke apart and exploded, taking 400 aliens with it. On the Krex flagship, Commander Thrak Mur stared at his tactical display, in shock. One of his cruisers had just been destroyed by a single shot from a much smaller enemy ship. "How is that possible?" he demanded. "Unknown, Commander," his tactical officer replied nervously. "The human weapon appears to be much more powerful than our scans indicated. All ships focus fire on that destroyer." 8 Krex vessels turned their weapons toward Soul's Pride. Dozens of plasma bolts converged on the human ship, causing minor damage but nothing critical. In response, 3 more human destroyers opened fire with their railguns. The results were devastating. 4 more Krex ships exploded in rapid succession, their hulls unable to withstand the kinetic impact of human weapons. "Commander," called the Krex communications officer, "we're receiving surrender demands from the human fleet." Thrak Mur looked at his tactical display. He had started the battle with 23 ships. Now he had 18, and the humans hadn't lost a single vessel. "Impossible," he growled. "We are the Krex Empire. We have conquered 12 worlds." "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "these humans fight differently than anyone we faced before." The Krex commander realized for the first time that he might have made a terrible mistake. These humans weren't like the peaceful species his empire usually conquered. They were warriors. Commander Thrakmor watched 5 more of his ships explode under human weapons fire. The Krex fleet that had seemed so powerful minutes ago was being destroyed piece by piece. "All ships, retreat to defensive positions," he ordered desperately. But the Krex ships were too slow. The human vessels moved with precision and speed that the aliens couldn't match. Every time a Krex ship tried to maneuver, human fighters swarmed around it, destroying its engines and weapons. Fighter pilot Kyung rolled her F-47 Falcon under the belly of a massive Krex battleship. The alien vessel was over a mile long, bristling, with weapons, but none of them could target her small fighter. "This is too easy," she told her squadron. "Their point defense systems are terrible. I'm going to try something." She armed her fighter's most powerful missile and aimed it at what appeared to be the ship's main reactor. The missile streaked across space and punched through the alien hull like it was paper. The Krex battleship exploded from the inside, its reactor overloading in a chain reaction that lit up space like a small sun. "Phoenix leader to all fighters," Kyung announced. "Target their reactors. These ships have no internal armor at all." On the bridge of Seoul's Wrath, Admiral Seok-jin watched the battle with growing amazement. The human fleet hadn't lost a single ship, while the Krex were being systematically destroyed. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "enemy fleet strength is down to 12 ships. They're trying to form a defensive circle around their flagship." "What's our status?" "All human ships report minimal damage. The enemy weapons are too weak to penetrate our armor effectively." Admiral Seok-jin studied the tactical display. The remaining Krex ships had clustered together in a desperate defensive formation. It wouldn't save them, but it showed they were finally taking the human threat seriously. "Open a channel to the Krex flagship," he ordered. Commander Thrakmor's ugly face appeared on the main screen. The Krex leader was clearly desperate, his small eyes wide with fear. "This is Admiral Seok-jin," the human officer announced. "You have murdered innocent people. Surrender immediately and face justice, or be destroyed." Thrakmor's face twisted in rage. "Humans, you dare interfere with the Krex Empire? We have conquered 12 worlds. We will not be defeated by some unknown species." "You've killed thousands of defenseless civilians," Admiral Seok-jin replied coldly. "That makes you war criminals. This is your final warning." "We do not surrender to weaklings," Thrakmor roared. "All ships, ramming speed. We'll show these humans how Krex warriors die." The remaining 12 Krex ships accelerated toward the human fleet in a desperate suicide charge. It was a terrifying sight, massive alien warships racing through space with their weapons blazing. But the human response was swift and precise. Captain Jaiho's destroyer Indomitable fired a spread of missiles that destroyed 3 Krex ships in rapid succession. The carrier New Incheon launched every fighter it had, creating a wall of interceptors between the charging aliens and the human fleet. The dreadnought Seoul's Wrath aimed its main battery at the Krex flagship. The massive ship carried the most powerful weapons humanity had ever built, railguns that could fire projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. "Fire," Admiral Seok-jin ordered quietly. The dreadnought's main guns fired together. 3 hypervelocity projectiles crossed space faster than the human eye could follow. They struck Thrakmor's flagship simultaneously, punching through the ship. From bow to stern, the bone crusher simply disintegrated. The massive Krex vessel turned to expanding debris and vaporized metal in seconds. With their commander dead and their flagship destroyed, the remaining Krex ships lost all coordination. Some tried to flee, others continued their suicide charge, and a few simply stopped moving as their crews panicked. The human fleet methodically destroyed them all. 20 minutes later, the battle was over. 23 Krex warships had been reduced to wreckage floating in space. The human fleet hadn't lost a single vessel. "All ships report status," Admiral Seok-jin ordered. One by one, the human captains confirmed their ships were undamaged. The most serious injury in the entire fleet was a broken arm suffered by a crewman who fell during the battle. On the surface of Aquos, Elder Crystalline felt the bombardment stop completely. For the first time in days, her world was quiet. "What happened?" she asked Harmonic Wave. The younger Villani monitored their communication equipment with excitement. "Elder, I'm receiving transmissions from the humans. They're saying the battle is over. They won." All the Krex ships? Destroyed. Every one of them. Crystalline couldn't believe it. The mighty Krex Empire, which had terrorized this part of the galaxy for centuries, had been defeated by a species no one had ever heard of. Admiral Seokjin's voice came over the communication channel, translated into musical Villani tones. "This is Admiral Seokjin to the surviving Villani. The Krex threat has been eliminated. Your world is safe. We are sending medical and rescue teams to help survivors." On the human flagship, Dr. Soyoung was already preparing first contact protocols for helping the wounded aliens. "Admiral, we need to be careful about biological contamination. We don't know how our diseases might affect them." "Understood. Use full protective equipment, but get down there and help those people." Commander Hyunwoo was preparing his Marines for a very different mission than they had trained for. Instead of fighting aliens, they would be rescuing them. "Remember," he told his troops, "these people have been through hell. They've watched their entire civilization being destroyed. Be gentle, be patient, and show them that not all aliens are monsters." The first human shuttles landed on Aquos 3 hours later. Marine medics in full protective suits carefully entered the underground shelters where the Villani survivors huddled in fear. Sergeant Mina was the first human to actually touch an alien being. She carefully lifted a wounded young Villani whose crystal body was cracked from falling debris. "It's okay," she said softly, even though she knew the alien couldn't understand her words. "You're safe now." The Villani looked up at her with large, fearful eyes. But something in the human's voice and gentle manner seemed to calm the alien child. More shuttles arrived carrying medical supplies, food, and temporary shelters. The humans worked quickly to establish aid stations and begin treating the wounded Villani. Elder Crystalline met Admiral Seokjin in person when he came down to the planet's surface. The old Villani leader was amazed by the human officer. So much. Smaller than a Krex warrior, but somehow infinitely more dangerous. "Why did you help us?" she asked through a translation device. "You don't even know us." Admiral Seokjin looked out at the ruins of the crystal cities, then back at the alien elder. "Because it was the right thing to do. Where we come from, we don't let innocent people get murdered." "But you risked your lives for strangers," the Admiral smiled. "That's what makes us human." In space above the planet, the wreckage of the Krex fleet drifted in slowly expanding clouds of debris. Already, human salvage teams were examining the alien technology, learning about their weapons and ships. But more importantly, news of the battle was spreading. Automated Krex communication systems had broadcast the fight across their empire. For the first time in centuries, subject species across 12 worlds learned that the invincible Krex could be defeated. Rebellions began within hours. On distant worlds, species that had suffered under Krex occupation for generations suddenly rose up against their oppressors. The news that the Empire's entire fleet had been destroyed by an unknown species gave them hope they hadn't felt in decades. Admiral Seokjin received reports of the spreading chaos across Krex space. "It seems we've started something bigger than we intended," he told his staff. "Should we intervene in the rebellions?" asked Captain Jiho. "Not directly, but make sure every rebel group knows that Earth stands with those fighting for freedom." The destruction of the Krex fleet at Aquos would be remembered as the moment the galaxy learned about humanity. A species that had appeared from nowhere, destroyed an entire empire's fleet without losing a single ship, and then stayed to help the victims. The deathworlders had announced themselves to the galaxy, and the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months after the destruction of the Krex Empire, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Admiral Seokjin stood on the observation deck of the new orbital station Terra Nova, watching ships from dozens of different species dock with the human facility. "Final report from the Liberation fleets," Captain Jiho announced as he joined the Admiral. "The last Krex stronghold on Rigel 7 has surrendered. That's all 12 former Empire worlds now free." Casualties from the operation? Minimal. The local population had already overthrown their Krex garrison before we arrived. We mostly just had to accept surrenders and coordinate relief supplies. Admiral Seokjin nodded with satisfaction. The galaxy had learned quickly that the Krex were not invincible. Once their main fleets were destroyed, rebellions had broken out everywhere, and the remaining alien warriors found themselves outnumbered and outgunned by their former victims. "What's the status of our new allies?" "Growing every day," Jiho replied. "The Volani have officially joined the Human Defense Coalition, so have the Malari from Sigma Draconis and the Cathari from the Vega system. That's 15 species now under our protection." The Human Defense Coalition had grown from Admiral Seokjin's simple promise to protect innocent people. As word spread about humanity's intervention against the Krex, other oppressed species had sent their own distress calls to Earth. Each time, the human response was the same: investigate the situation, try to negotiate a peaceful solution, and, if that failed, send in the fleet. Dr. So-young approached the two officers, carrying a data tablet full of reports. "Admiral, I have the psychological assessment of our new Krex prisoners. After the final battle, several hundred Krex warriors had surrendered rather than fight to the death. They were now being held in a detention facility on Earth's moon, the first alien prisoners in human history. What did you find?" "They're still having trouble understanding what happened to them," she reported. "The Krex built their entire culture around the idea that might makes right. They simply cannot comprehend being defeated by smaller, seemingly weaker opponents. Are they adapting to captivity?" "Slowly. Some are showing genuine remorse for their actions. Others remain defiant, but none of them seem to pose a real threat anymore. Their whole worldview has been shattered." Ambassador Sung-hoon arrived from the docking bay, having just returned from a diplomatic mission to the former Krex territories. "Admiral, I have news from the Galactic Mediation Council." This was the mysterious organization the Volani had originally tried to contact. After humanity's victory over the Krex, the Council had finally made contact with Earth. What do they want now? They're formally requesting a meeting. They want to discuss humanity's irregular intervention in galactic affairs. Admiral Seokjin smiled grimly. "I take it they're not happy about us disrupting the status quo?" "That's putting it mildly." Apparently, the Council's approach to dealing with aggressive species like the Krex was to contain them rather than confront them. They're concerned that our direct military intervention sets a dangerous precedent. What dangerous precedent? Stopping genocide? They argue that every species has the right to develop according to their own nature, even if that nature is violent. Direct intervention violates their principle of galactic sovereignty. Captain Jiho shook his head in disgust. So they would have let the Krex murder the entire Volani species because it was natural for them? Essentially, yes. Admiral Seokjin had expected this kind of reaction. Humanity's aggressive response to the Krek situation had clearly upset the established galactic order, but he didn't care. Ambassador, send the Council a simple message. Earth does not recognize their authority over human actions. We will continue to protect innocent people wherever we find them. If they want to discuss this policy, they're welcome to visit Earth. Sir, Ambassador Sung-Hoon said carefully, they're implying that they have the power to enforce their will on humanity if we don't comply with galactic law. Let them try. The truth was, Admiral Seokjin knew the Council was more afraid of humanity than they were willing to admit. Intelligence reports suggested they had never encountered a species quite like humans, one that combined advanced technology with an aggressive protective instinct. On the planet Aquos, Elder Crystalline was overseeing the rebuilding of her people's civilization. The crystal cities were slowly being regrown, using a combination of traditional Volani techniques and human technology. The new designs are beautiful, she told Commander Hyunwoo as they walked through the construction site. Stronger than our old cities, but still maintaining our cultural aesthetic. My engineers were impressed by your building methods, the Marine commander replied. Growing structures instead of constructing them is something we'd never considered. And your defensive systems will ensure we're never helpless again. The new Volani cities incorporated human military technology seamlessly. Hidden weapon systems and shield generators were integrated into the crystal structures, making them both beautiful and defensible. Elder, Hyunwoo said, I've received word that another species has sent a distress call to Earth. The Zephyrians from the Tau Ceti system. They're being threatened by something called the hegemony. Crystalline nodded sadly. The galaxy has many predators like the Kreks. I'm glad humans have chosen to stand against them. Don't you worry about us becoming like the species we fight? No, she said firmly. I have watched your people work alongside mine for months. You could have conquered us easily. Taken our world for yourselves. Instead, you helped us rebuild and then asked for nothing in return. That is not the behavior of conquerors. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Kim was meeting with the expanded Defense Council to discuss humanity's growing galactic responsibilities. We now have formal defense treaties with 15 alien species, General Minho reported. Each agreement commits us to protecting them from external aggression in exchange for technology sharing and trade partnerships. What's our military capacity? We've expanded the space fleet to 200 ships and established permanent bases in 12 systems. Our Marine Corps now includes alien volunteers from 6 different species. Intelligence Officer Yuna presented her latest analysis. The destruction of the Krek's empire has created a power vacuum in this part of the galaxy. Several other aggressive species are expanding their territories, which means more potential conflicts. Recommendations? We establish clear boundaries, Admiral Seokjin suggested. Make it known that any species engaging in genocide, slavery, or unprovoked aggression will face human intervention. President Kim considered this. That's essentially declaring ourselves the galaxy's police force. Someone needs to do the job, the Admiral replied. The Galactic Mediation Council clearly won't. The decision was made. Earth would continue its policy of humanitarian intervention, backed by the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. 6 months later, Captain Jiho stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned dreadnought New Seoul as it approached the Tau Ceti system. Another distress call, another species facing extinction, another chance for humanity to prove that the strong should protect the weak. Status report, he ordered, as the ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. 12 hegemony warships in orbit around Zephyr Prime, reported his tactical officer. They appear to be conducting orbital bombardment of civilian targets. Same pattern as the Kreks, Jiho observed grimly. Target the defenseless. Terrorize the survivors. Communications. Officer Nari looked up from her station. Captain, I'm receiving a transmission from the Hegemony flagship. They're demanding we leave the system immediately. Put them on screen. The alien that appeared was different from the Kreks, but equally intimidating. The Hegemony commander had gray, scaled skin and multiple arms, each ending in sharp claws. When it spoke, its voice was cold and mechanical. Unknown vessels, you are interfering with Hegemony expansion operations. Withdraw immediately or face annihilation. Captain Jiho smiled the same cold smile Admiral Seokjin had shown the Kreks. This is Captain Jiho of the Earth Defense Force. You are committing war crimes against a peaceful species. Cease all hostile actions and surrender your fleet. The alien commander's expression showed confusion, then amusement. Earth Defense Force? We have no record of your species. You will be added to our databases after we destroy your ships. You can try, Jiho replied, then cut the transmission. All ships, battle stations. Let's show these Hegemony forces what happens when they threaten innocent people. The battle was brief and decisive. The Hegemony, like the Kreks before them, had never faced opponents who combined superior technology with centuries of warfare experience. Their ships were destroyed with minimal human casualties. Word of humanity's second major intervention spread across the galaxy within days. The message was clear. Earth would not tolerate genocide or unprovoked aggression, regardless of who was committing it. Over the following year, 3 more aggressive species found themselves facing human fleets after attacking peaceful civilizations. Each time, the result was the same. The aggressors were defeated, and their victims were protected. The battle for Aquos began at dawn on the planet's largest continent. High Commander Vraktor's massive fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, their weapons already charging for combat. This is High Commander Vraktor, to the human fleet, his message broadcast across all frequencies. You have interfered with Kreks Empire operations for the last time. Surrender immediately, and we will make your deaths quick. Admiral Seokjin's response was immediate and cold. This is Admiral Seokjin of the Earth Defense Force. You came here to finish murdering innocent people. That makes you our enemy. We don't surrender to murderers. Then you will die with the crystal freaks, Vraktor snarled. All ships, open fire! The space around Aquos erupted in weapons fire. Over 100 Kreks ships launched their plasma cannons, simultaneously sending waves of superheated energy toward the human fleet. But this time, the humans were ready. All ships, evasive maneuvers, Admiral Seokjin commanded. Execute Battle Plan Omega. The human fleet scattered into smaller groups, using their superior speed and maneuverability to avoid the massive enemy barrage. The Kreks weapons, designed for close-range bombardment, were too slow to track the rapidly moving human ships. Return fire, all vessels! The human response was devastating. Railgun rounds and plasma missiles streaked across space, striking Kreks ships with pinpoint accuracy. Unlike the aliens' area effect weapons, every human shot was precisely aimed at critical ship systems. Fighter pilot Kyung led her expanded squadron of 60 fighters against the Kreks formation. All fighters, target their command ships first. Take out their coordination and they'll fall apart. But the Kreks had learned from their previous defeat. This time, they had brought dedicated fighter craft, crude but numerous interceptors launched from their larger ships. Enemy fighters incoming, reported her wingman. Looks like about 200 of them. Kyung smiled grimly. 200. Against 60? They still don't understand. Phoenix Squadron, engage at will. The space battle between human and alien fighters was brutal, but brief. The Krex interceptors were large, heavily armed, but slow and clumsy. Human pilots, trained on Earth's dangerous atmosphere and in countless war games, outflew them easily. Within minutes, half the Krex fighters were destroyed while the humans lost only 3 craft. But the real surprise came when the first human ships began taking damage. The Krex had brought new weapons, more powerful plasma cannons that could actually penetrate human armor. "Hull breach on Deck 7, reported the damage control officer aboard the destroyer Busan's Hammer. "We're losing atmosphere." Captain Park, commanding the damaged vessel, gritted his teeth. "Seal the breach and continue firing. We're not backing." "Down." Admiral Seokjin watched his tactical display with growing concern. The human fleet was holding its own, but barely. The Krex had brought overwhelming numbers and heavier weapons. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we've destroyed 30 enemy ships, but we're down to 27 functional vessels. At this rate, they'll overwhelm us through sheer numbers." "Not if we hit them where it hurts," the admiral replied. "All ships concentrate fire on the enemy flagship. Take out their commander." The remaining human ships focused their attack on Vraktor's massive dreadnought Galaxy Crusher. Railgun rounds and missiles hammered the alien vessel's shields and armor, but the Krex flagship was too well protected. The concentrated human fire caused damage but couldn't penetrate to the ship's vital systems. Worse, the Krex commander had learned from human tactics. "All ships, concentrate fire on single targets," Vraktor ordered. "Destroy them one at a time." The alien fleet focused its massive firepower on the human destroyer Soul's Pride. Under the combined fire of 20 Krex ships, the destroyer's armor failed and the ship exploded. "We've lost Soul's Pride," reported the communications officer. "All hands." Admiral Seokjin felt the weight of command crushing down on him. 200 human sailors had just died under his orders, but he couldn't let their sacrifice be meaningless. "Major Ara, are your special forces ready?" he asked over the communication system. Major Ara's voice came back from her stealth ship, hidden among the debris of the first battle. "Ready for insertion, Admiral? Do it! Take out their command structure." While the main battle raged in space, Major Ara led a team of 12 human Special Forces soldiers on the most dangerous mission in Earth's history. Using captured Krex technology, they had modified a stealth shuttle to approach the enemy flagship undetected. "Remember," she told her team as they prepared to board the alien ship, "we're not here to fight their entire crew. We're here to cut off the head of the snake. Quick, quiet, and lethal." The human commandos wore powered armor designed for ship-to-ship combat. Their weapons were kinetic rifles loaded with armor-piercing rounds specifically designed to work in zero gravity. They docked with the Galaxy Crusher through a maintenance port and began moving through the alien ship's corridors. The Krex vessel was massive, with corridors wide enough for their large warriors, but the layout was crude and inefficient. "These aliens have no sense of ship design," whispered Sergeant Yoon. "Everything is brute force and no subtlety. That's why they're losing." "The space battle," Ara replied quietly. "They don't understand that war is about more than just having bigger guns." The team moved deeper into the ship, avoiding patrols of Krex warriors. The aliens were impressive physical specimens, each standing 9 feet tall with natural armor, plating, but they were also loud, clumsy, and predictable. "Target acquired," Ara reported as they reached the command center. "I can see their commander through the viewport. He's huge, even for a Krex." "How many guards?" asked her second-in-command. 12 in the command center, maybe 20 more in the surrounding corridors." "Orders?" Major Ara checked her chronometer. The space battle was not going well for the human fleet. Every minute they delayed meant more human lives lost. "We go in hard and fast. Remember, these aliens have never faced human ground combat tactics." The Special Forces team burst into the Krex command center with devastating precision. They're kinetic. Weapons punched through alien armor like paper, while their superior speed and coordination let them outmaneuver the larger but slower Krex warriors. High Commander Vraktor turned in surprise as human soldiers appeared on his bridge. He had never seen the species that had been causing so much trouble for his empire. "You!" he roared. "You're so small! How can such tiny creatures defeat the mighty Krex?" Major Ara aimed her rifle at the alien commander's chest. "Because we learned to fight on a world that tried to kill us every day. You learned to fight defenseless victims. Impossible! We are the apex predators of our world." "So were we," Ara replied, and pulled the trigger. With their commander dead and their flagship's bridge destroyed, the Krex fleet lost all coordination. Individual ship captains began making their own decisions, some fleeing while others continued. Fighting without any overall strategy, Admiral Seokjin seized the opportunity. "All ships, press the attack. They're falling apart." The human fleet, though badly damaged, began systematically destroying the confused and disorganized Krex ships. Without central command, the aliens couldn't coordinate their superior numbers effectively. But the victory came at a terrible cost. When the battle ended 6 hours later, the human fleet had been reduced to 15 functional ships. Over 1,000 Earth sailors and Marines had died in the fighting. However, they had achieved something remarkable. The entire Krex home fleet, over 100 ships, had been destroyed. The military backbone of the Krex Empire was broken on Ai. The planet's surface, Colonel Jimin's Marines had fought off 3 separate landing attempts by Krex ground forces. The alien warriors were physically powerful but tactically primitive, and they had never faced humans trained in Earth's deadliest combat environments. "Final report," Jimin told Admiral Seokjin as the last Krex survivors were taken prisoner. "Enemy ground forces neutralized. Villani civilian population secure. Human casualties, 43 dead, 91 wounded." The Admiral looked out at the wreckage floating in space around Aquos. Hundreds of alien ships destroyed, thousands of enemy warriors dead, and an entire empire's military power shattered. "Send a message to Earth," he ordered. "The Krex Empire is finished as a military threat. Begin humanitarian operations on all formerly occupied worlds." Elder Crystalline approached the Admiral as he stood watching the cleanup operations. "Admiral, Seokjin, my people owe you a debt we can never repay. You saved us from extinction." "We did what anyone should do when innocent people are being murdered," he replied. "But at such cost to your own people. Why do humans risk so much for strangers?" The Admiral looked down at the alien leader, thinking about the question. "Because that's what makes us human, Elder. We protect those who can't protect themselves, no matter what it costs us." News of the second Krex defeat spread across the galaxy even faster than the first. Within days, every remaining Krex garrison was under attack by rebel forces. The empire that had terrorized this part of the galaxy for centuries collapsed completely within a week. But more importantly, the galaxy had learned something new about humanity. They weren't just powerful warriors, they were warriors who fought for justice rather than conquest. 6 months after the destruction of the Krex Empire, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Admiral Seok Jin stood on the observation deck of the new orbital station Terra Nova, watching ships from dozens of different species dock with the human facility. "Final report from the Liberation fleets," Captain Jiho announced as he joined the Admiral. "The last Krex stronghold on Rigel 7 has surrendered. That's all 12 former Empire worlds now free." "Casualties from the operation?" "Minimal. The local population had already overthrown their Krex garrison before we arrived. We mostly just had to accept surrenders and coordinate relief supplies." Admiral Seokjin nodded with satisfaction. The galaxy had learned quickly that the Krex were not invincible. Once their main fleets were destroyed, rebellions had broken out everywhere, and the remaining alien warriors found themselves outnumbered and outgunned by their former victims. "What's the status of our new allies?" "Growing every day," Jiho replied. "The Villani have officially joined the Human Defense Coalition. So have the Malari from Sigma Draconis and the Cathari from the Vega system. That's 15 species now under our protection." The Human Defense Coalition had grown from Admiral Seokjin's simple promise to protect innocent people. As word spread about humanity's intervention against the Krex, other oppressed species had sent their own distress calls to Earth. Each time, the human response was the same: investigate the situation, try to negotiate a peaceful solution, and, if that failed, send in the fleet. Dr. So-Young approached the two officers, carrying a data tablet full of reports. "Admiral, I have the psychological assessment of our new Krex prisoners. After the final battle, several hundred Krex warriors had surrendered rather than fight to the death. They were now being held in a detention facility on Earth's moon, the first alien prisoners in human history." "What did you find?" "They're still having trouble understanding what happened to them," she reported. "The Krex built their entire culture around the idea that might makes right. They simply cannot comprehend being defeated by smaller, seemingly weaker opponents. Are they adapting to captivity?" "Slowly. Some are showing genuine remorse for their actions. Others remain defiant, but none of them seem to pose a real threat anymore. Their whole world view has been shattered." Ambassador Sung-hoon arrived from the docking bay, having just returned from a diplomatic mission to the former Krex territories. "Admiral, I have news from the Galactic Mediation Council." This was the mysterious organization the Villani had originally tried to contact. After humanity's victory over the Krex, the Council had finally made contact with Earth. What do they want now? They're formally requesting a meeting. They want to discuss humanity's irregular intervention in galactic affairs. Admiral Seokjin smiled grimly. "I take it they're not happy about us disrupting the status quo?" That's putting it mildly. Apparently, the Council's approach to dealing with aggressive species like the Krex was to contain them rather than confront them. They're concerned that our direct military intervention sets a dangerous precedent. What dangerous precedent? Stopping genocide? They argue that every species has the right to develop according to their own nature, even if that nature is violent. Direct intervention violates their principle of galactic sovereignty. Captain Jiho shook his head in disgust. So they would have let the Krex murder the entire Villani species because it was natural for them. Essentially, yes. Admiral Seokjin had expected this kind of reaction. Humanity's aggressive response to the Krex situation had clearly upset the established galactic order. But he didn't care. "Ambassador, send the Council a simple message. Earth does not recognize their authority over human actions. We will continue to protect innocent people wherever we find them. If they want to discuss this policy, they're welcome to visit Earth." "Sir." Ambassador Sung-hoon said carefully. They're implying that they have the power to enforce their will on humanity if we don't comply with galactic law. Let them try. The truth was, Admiral Seokjin knew the Council was more afraid of humanity than they were willing to admit. Intelligence reports suggested they had never encountered a species quite like humans, one that combined advanced technology with an aggressive protective instinct. On the planet Aquos, Elder Crystalline was overseeing the rebuilding of her people's civilization. The crystal cities were slowly being regrown, using a combination of traditional Vellani techniques and human technology. The new designs are beautiful, she told Commander Hanwoo as they walked through the construction site. Stronger than our old cities, but still maintaining our cultural aesthetic. My engineers were impressed by your building methods, the Marine commander replied. Growing structures instead of constructing them is something we'd never considered. And your defensive systems will ensure we're never helpless again. The new Vellani cities incorporated human military technology seamlessly. Hidden weapon systems and shield generators were integrated into the crystal structures, making them both beautiful and defensible. Elder, Hyunwoo said, I've received word that another species has sent a distress call to Earth. The Zephyrians from the Tau Ceti system. They're being threatened by something called the hegemony. Crystalline nodded sadly. The galaxy has many predators like the Krex. I'm glad humans have chosen to stand against them. Don't you worry about us becoming like the species we fight? No, she said firmly. I have watched your people work alongside mine for months. You could have conquered us easily, taken our world for yourselves. Instead, you helped us rebuild and then asked for nothing in return. That is not the behavior of conquerors. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Kim was meeting with the expanded Defense Council to discuss humanity's growing galactic responsibilities. We now have formal defense treaties with 15 alien species, General Minho reported. Each agreement commits us to protecting them from external aggression in exchange for technology sharing and trade partnerships. What's our military capacity? We've expanded the space fleet to 200 ships and established permanent bases in 12 systems. Our Marine Corps now includes alien volunteers from 6 different species. Intelligence Officer Yuna presented her latest analysis. The destruction of the Krex Empire has created a power vacuum in this part of the galaxy. Several other aggressive species are expanding their territories, which means more potential conflicts. Recommendations? We establish clear boundaries, Admiral Seokjin suggested. Make it known that any species engaging in genocide, slavery, or unprovoked aggression will face human intervention. President Kim considered this. That's essentially declaring ourselves the galaxy's police force. Someone needs to do the job, the Admiral replied. The Galactic Mediation Council clearly won't. The decision was made. Earth would continue its policy of humanitarian intervention, backed by the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. 6 months later, Captain Jiho stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned dreadnought New Seoul as it approached the Tau Ceti system. Another distress call. Another species facing extinction. Another chance for humanity to prove that the strong should protect the weak. Status report, he ordered, as the ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. 12 hegemony warships in orbit around Zephyr Prime, reported his tactical officer. They appear to be conducting orbital bombardment of civilian targets. Same pattern as the Krex, Jiho observed grimly. Target the defenseless, terrorize the survivors. Communications. Officer Nari looked up from her station. Captain, I'm receiving a transmission from the Hegemony flagship. They're demanding we leave the system immediately. Put them on screen." The alien that appeared was different from the Krex, but equally intimidating. The hegemony commander had gray, scaled skin and multiple arms, each ending in sharp claws. When it spoke, its voice was cold and mechanical. "Unknown vessels, you are interfering with hegemony expansion operations. Withdraw immediately or face annihilation." Captain Jiho smiled the same cold smile Admiral Seokjin had shown the Krex. "This is Captain Jiho of the Earth Defense Force. You are committing war crimes against a peaceful species. Cease all hostile actions and surrender your fleet." The alien commander's expression showed confusion, then amusement. "Earth Defense Force? We have no record of your species. You will be added to our databases after we destroy your ships." "You can try," Jiho replied, then cut the transmission. "All ships, battle stations. Let's show these hegemony forces what happens when they threaten innocent people." The battle was brief and decisive. The hegemony, like the Krex before them, had never faced opponents who combined superior technology with centuries of warfare experience. Their ships were destroyed with minimal human casualties. Word of humanity's second major intervention spread across the galaxy within days. The message was clear. Earth would not tolerate genocide or unprovoked aggression, regardless of who was committing it. Over the following year, 3 more aggressive species found themselves facing human fleets after attacking peaceful civilizations. Each time, the result was the same. The aggressors were defeated, and their victims were protected. The Galactic Mediation Council finally agreed to meet with human,